All right, so today we are taking it way back before streaming took over the music industry, back when listening and purchasing music was an event, back when you'd have to leave the house to shop at places like Sam Goody, Tower Records, and the Virgin Megastore. So my sources for today are Wikipedia, Mental Floss, the New York Times, and bestsellingalbums.org. Today, if you didn't realize already, it's all about music stores. You probably still have one in your town, but it's usually used CDs and records that are aged. But back in the 90s, you could go to the mall and sample CDs to see if you like them enough to purchase them. And you buy them there on the spot, the old school way at the cash register. So sampling was an experience in itself. Even if you did not have money to buy a CD, you could burn an hour away just listening to music on their sample machines. In department stores like Walmart or Target, this would be just a machine with a bunch of little square buttons that had images of CD covers, and you'd press a button to play a compilation of the music on the CD out loud. So with that, everyone in the store can hear it. But at the record stores, this was completely different. There was an entire section of the store dedicated to sampling. There would be individual player that would have an entire CD on it, so you could just sit there and listen to the whole album if you wanted to. Although usually there would be a line behind you if you sat there and actually listened to the whole CD. So they would usually have the latest and the greatest CDs released, and you would have one of each. So if the CD you wanted to sample was being listened to, you'd either have to wait for the person to be done or just come back at a different time. And, if they seen you twice, usually, back in those days, they'd be polite and try to wrap it up so you could have a turn. Also, this would be private because you'd have headphones on. So if there was an inappropriate song on the album, there's a chance your parents would still buy the CD for you unless they had that little explicit content parental advisory stamp on the cover. Also, just browsing the stores could take you hours if you allowed it to. You could browse hundreds, maybe thousands of albums, and they were usually in alphabetical order by artist, and you could just scroll through them like a Rolodex. Very old school there. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on the history of some of our favorite record stores. So the first store I think of when I think of popular record stores in the mall, I think of Sam Goody, probably because that was the first one I was exposed to. So Sam Goody was first opened in the 1940s. It started by Sam Goody Gudowitz, who opened up a small record store on 49th Street in New York. Now, Mr. Sam Netflix before Netflix. And by that, I mean the old school Netflix. I just said Netflix way too many times. Sorry, folks. So Sam pioneered mail-in sales at discounted prices, which was hot with the college kids, and it really got his business booming as it was the first record store of its kind. In 1951, Sam Goody became a chain, and stores opened up all over the United States and the United Kingdom, and in 1959, creditors were brought in to collect debts. So not everyone was paying their music tabs here for their mail-in records. So Sam Goody in the early days was known for its unique promotions. For example, there was a promotion where anyone who spent $25 or more would get a free turntable, which is pretty generous if you ask me. Sam Goody was known for its discounted media, as they were not limited to just music, but also sold movies and books. So before Spotify and even Napster, Sam Goody was also accused of and faced a suit for piracy. With the discounted price of music, many artists saw a loss in revenue for their music, and this included artists like Olivia Newton-John, Paul McCartney, and Billy Idol. Why? Well, here's where it gets fishy. The suit accused Gudowitz of copying counterfeit cassette tapes, including the Grease soundtrack. He ended up pleading no contest, which means he accepts the conviction but not the guilt. And he paid $10,000. And employees at Sam Goody were also known for being very knowledgeable on records, books, and movies, which it makes kind of sense since you should know your product, but they really stood out for their knowledge. And Sam Goody actually required you to know a lot in order to get a job there. So these folks were, it's not like Home Depot where you walk in and nobody knows where anything is. Like they know the ins and outs of their products. Next up is Tower Records. I feel like this is the record store most people think about when they go back in their head and think about music stores, at least where I grew up. Tower Records was founded in Sacramento, California. Shout out to my NorCal fam. It was founded by Russell Solomon, who named the store after his father's drugstore that was located in the Tower Theater. Russell actually started selling records in that pharmacy store. Tower Records opened in 1960. And by 1967, Russell also had opened Tower books, posters, and plants. He was really selling anything you could ever love. I think all he's missing at this point really is like food and candles, for me at least, and then I'd be covered.
He's basically a Home Goods before a Home Goods.
Yes! Tower Goods. In 1967, Tower Records expanded over to the Bay in San Francisco, and then in 1979 it made its way to Japan, and from there it really expanded over the globe. The store was known for its yellow color with red writing and its slogan, "No music, no life." In those days, that saying really was so true, right? Like music was a huge part of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Tower Records also began publishing their own magazine titled Pulse in 1983. And the magazine got big by 1992 and sold for $2.95 per issue. The magazine was filled with reviews of records, interviews, and of course, advertising. It ran until 2002 with 222 issues in total. With the two big stores in the United States were located in the two big cities, in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard and on Broadway in Greenwich Village, New York. These were like holy grails for music lovers traveling through. So the employees at Tower Records were not only knowledgeable like at Sam Goody, but they were also filled with opinions. I don't know if that's my jam, but in these cities that are focused on the arts, you're kind of asking for it.
Yeah.
Piracy in the early 2000s brought Tower Records to its end. We know nothing about that, right? LimeWire, what?
Not me.
However, Tower Records has actually made a comeback in the 2020s and they've now reopened online.
Nice.
So I thought that was interesting. Now we have to talk about the record store of record stores, the Virgin Megastore. I didn't actually know this was a thing until I was a teenager when we moved to Arizona. But I do remember my first time in that store. Just to give you an idea of when this was, the CD's on sample because I remember this night. We had JoJo's sophomore album, which was called How to Touch a Girl. And we had Rihanna's debut album, Music of the Sun. So shout out to your time, Amber.
Oh, yeah.
The Virgin Record megastores were just one branch of the Virgin Records empire, which was founded by Richard Branson, who on Wikipedia is described as business agnet and commercial astronaut. Don't ask me what that means, but that's what it said.
I have so many questions. That answered nothing about him.
When I think of the Virgin Records music, the first comes to mind is the one and only Mariah Carey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Totally.
But this company's massive. In the past, they've even had phone carrier services and airlines. So they're huge. They're bigger than Mariah Carey, which is kind of a weird thought.
Scary to think
how
about.
Are you bigger than Mariah Carey? But the first store opened in London in 1971 on Oxford Street. And throughout the 80s and 90s, they expanded across the world, including our home, the United States. So you know the name Virgin, and you're about to walk in the store. Like, it's definitely compared to the feeling you'd get when you're about to walk into Disneyland or even the Disney store. Like, there's just some magic in the air, and there's a lot to explore. Not only did they have eons worth of music available to sample and buy, but they also carried CD players, movies, books, board games, calendars, really just any type of media or anything having to do with entertainment. And I also remember the vibe being like you're in the recording studio. Like the lighting and the design of the store was as if you were in there with the artist. So it was really an experience.
Mhm.
Music was really different back then. You either had to turn on the radio and wait to hear your song, or you invested money into being able to hear it whenever you wanted to. And that even took work because if you had a boombox, you had to be at home to listen, or you'd have to get a portable CD player with headphones. Then you could listen to your music on the go. And you'd have to also have the CDs you wanted, and you'd have to put that one in. You'd have to make sure the player stays flat and don't even dream of dropping or bumping it, or it is game over.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started on the times that I ruined my CD player and like your CDs would start skipping and your friends would be like, "What's wrong with your CD?" I'd be like, "It's not the CD, it's the CD player." And you'd smack it a couple of times and it'd be fine again.
Yep. Those are some times.
Or holding the cord just right. You had to hold the cord out because the
Oh,
cord was the
yep.
problem.
When your headphones shorted out.
See, we're
Man,
clearly real millennials, guys. We have real facts.
this was real pain. Music stores served as a place to discover new music, revisit old music, and just enjoy music in general. People would hang out in these stores. Like, that was the event. You go hang out at the music store. That was it. You could even meet people in a music store, which sounds great, honestly. It's so hard to meet people these days. So imagine just going into a store and finding your people based on what music they listen to, because the kind of music you listen to really does go to say something about who you are, be it like the things you care about or what interests you, or you could even be introduced to new music or concepts by meeting these new people in these stores. So, Amber, we grew up in the time where we kind of were like in the middle of the transition from cassette tapes to CDs. So I have a question for you. Do you remember what the first CD you owned was?
Oh God, what was my first CD? It had to have been it was either Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, and I think it was Baby One More Time. I
Same. That
think
was my
so.
first CD too. Yeah, I remember begging both. I'm a child of divorce, but I remember begging both my mom and my dad for it, and I managed to get both sides. So my mom got me the cassette tape, and then my dad got me the CD. But I remember I think it was my birthday, and my dad gave me two boxes. And you know how like CDs have that shape and the DVDs have the shape,
Hmm.
when you were getting a CD. Okay, well, he decided to put it in a box of Christmas lights, I think it was, and wrap it. So
Be
I
smart.
open the first gift and I get a CD player. And I'm like, okay, but I clearly didn't get my CD. So I'm like, whatever. And then I open the other box and find out it's the Britney CD.
I would die. No, see, that's the best. And this is so funny that you say that because yeah, back in the day, that was the thing, right? We didn't get creative with wrapping DVDs or DVDs. Back in the day, it was VHSs, but CDs because they were just it was so perfectly square. Why even bother? So as soon as you got
Exactly.
it was square, you were like, ah, because you knew it was something. You just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and you're gonna know how much it's gonna weigh in your hands and what it's gonna feel like, and don't squeeze it too hard.
Oh my God. It's just so funny, right? Because that was the thing one of the things we were so excited about getting was CDs. Like we didn't care about anything else. It was just like build up the arsenal for us so we can have that little flip through. Did you ever have the flip through with your CDs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've still got it in my storage shed.
I gotta go find mine too, because I told you, I was like, I have my Baby One More Time CD in there, but I lost my little my thing. It's there, it's somewhere.
Yeah, your book.
Yes.
But yeah, I was always like during the weekends when I was with my dad, I would always have my CD player with Britney in it, and I would take that thing everywhere.
Yes. Oh my God. I'll age myself a little bit. Recess time, CD players, pop on your headset and just go. I would sit on the swings and I would just swing with
Walk
my CD
around.
player. I would swing with my CD player. I didn't even care. Sit on the swing.
That's so funny.
So
Yeah, I
lame.
can't even tell you though how many times I got up and walked away forgetting like I've got this whole thing connected to me, and then it's just boom, 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 and everyone looks.
And you're
Yeah.
like, not only are you embarrassed,
Yeah.
but you're like, what broke? What broke? Was it the CD? Was it the player? What broke?
Yeah.
But they were pretty
Oh,
durable back into the day, though. I will say our electronics, while being clanky and junky, like in the sense of bulky, I should say, they were pretty durable.
yeah. I gotta say though, my poor Britney CD is so scratched.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what mine looks like.
Well, in honor of CDs and record stores, I compiled a list of the top albums of each year from the 90s. I couldn't find an actual list with the number album for each year, so I just put this together. So I did the research and made the list myself. So in 1990, the number one album was The Immaculate Collection by Madonna. But that's a best of album, so in my opinion, it doesn't really count. So the next one was Step by Step by New Kids on the Block. 1991 was the
Yes.
self-titled album by Metallica. Interesting.
Okay.
Not my cup of tea, but okay.
Doesn't explain
Uh
anything about us 1991s. That's
no,
not
that's not
1990 fun.
1990 fun. That is hilarious.
I love that.
Okay. 1992 was the Bodyguard soundtrack, which are we surprised? It's Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
And this was also the top selling album of the entire decade of the 90s.
Oh.
So we started off strong. 1993 was Music Box by Mariah Carey, another no brainer.
Hmm.
1994, we got Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish. I only know one song of theirs, but I know in Friends they went to a concert of theirs, so this
Yeah.
checks out because 1994 was when Friends started.
The only reason
Got
I know who they are is because my mom liked them. So I know like a couple of songs, but I think it's because of Friends and like the popularity around all that.
yeah, I just know I only want to be with you. I don't even know if that's the name of it.
I think I don't even know, right? It could be just named something like you remember in the 90s when things were named something really obscure. It was like Cascade, and then it was like in parentheses, I only want to be with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it could have been that.
Yeah, I don't know. In 1995, we have Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Huge one. 1996 was the top selling album was Falling Into You by Celine Dion. And then we have 1997 Come On Over by the iconic Queen Shania Twain. I
Yes.
love that album.
So good.
And this was so many good songs on that one. And this was the third best selling album of the entire decade.
Oh.
Yeah, so that one did really well too. 1998, we have Believe by Cher. What a song.
Yes.
And the number one album in 1999, which was also the number two album of all of the 90s. Do you have any guesses?
99. What came out in 99? Was it Oops, I Did It Again? Was that 2000 or
No,
99?
that came in 2000.
Dang, I did the research too. I should know that.
But you're on the right track. It was Millennium by Backstreet Boys, which is iconic.
Oh, duh. Okay, yes, of course. I love that album too.
It's so good. But yeah, that is all I have today on music stores.